Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos. This is Whirligig. It's 12-inch finished. Here's the diagram. It's made up of large and small half-square triangles and chisel units. The chisel units will use the stitch and flip or the folded corner clipper method to make those. This comes from a pattern that's a free download from McCall's Quilting. It has a quilt with sashing, cornerstones, and border that finishes 76 by 92 inches. And you can either click here or scan it to download it. If you're looking at this online, you can click on here, or if you have a phone, you can scan it with your phone. Here are all the AccuQuilt dies that will cut these patches. The instructions below will make 2 identical blocks. And the reason I did that is because these large half-square triangles, and actually the small ones too, you'll need to cut a square and cut it in half, and you'll only use one of the halves. So you may as well make 2 blocks because you're making 2 of almost everything. The first are the accent fabrics, and choose 4 different accent fabrics. For each of the 4 fabrics, we'll cut the following. Patch A is a 4-inch finished half-square triangle. We cut one at 4 7/8 inches squares for half-square triangles 2 at a time. Or if you're making patches, you cut them each in half once diagonally for 2 patches. Patch B is a 2-inch finished half-square triangle. We cut 1 square at 2 7/8 inches. We'll leave it as a square for 2 at a time method. Or for patches, we'll cut the square in half once diagonally for 2 patches, and that's for each of the fabrics. Patch C is a 2-inch by 4-inch finished rectangle. Cut 2 at 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. Patch D is a 2-inch finished square. We'll cut 2 squares at 2.5 inches. For the background fabric, patch A, we'll cut 4 at 4 7/8 inch squares. Leave them in squares for half-square triangles 2 at a time. Or for patches, cut each square in half once diagonally for 8 patches. For patch B, the 2-inch finished half-square triangle, we'll cut 4 at 2 7/8 inch squares, and that is for the half-square triangles 2 at a time. Or for patches, we'll cut each of those squares in half once diagonally for 8 patches. Patch C is the 2-inch by 4-inch finished rectangle. We cut 8 at 2.5 by 4.5 inches. Patch D is a 2-inch finished square, and we cut 8 squares at 2.5 inches. First thing we're going to do is piece the half-square triangles. The A patch triangle is larger than the B patch triangle. We'll piece all of those. And then for step 2, we'll piece all of the chisel units. Then we'll put the block together. This is patch A and B, the half-square triangles. We'll use the 2 at a time method to make the small and the large half-square triangles, and we'll have 2 of each fabric. If you're not familiar with this method, stay tuned for a short tutorial that shows you how. On the back side of the light fabric, we're going to draw a diagonal line, put the fabrics together, right sides together, and we're going to stitch on either side of the diagonal line. Here is the diagonal line drawn, and then the stitching on both sides. Now we cut this in half along the diagonal line. Then we have our 2 half-square triangles. Press the seams open and cut off the nubs. For step 2, we're going to take the C and D patches. To make these, we take the rectangles, and then we take, well, in this case, we'll take the background square, 2.5 inch square, and we'll put it like this on the rectangle. So if we refer back to this diagram, we want this angle to go like that. So this part, if the angle goes like this, then this part will be cut off. If you're using the folded corner clipper, here's what it looks like. We're going to line up these lines, and I want the angle to go like this. So if you get confused which way to go, just turn your diagram the same way as your fabric. So I want the line or the cut to go this way. I'll put the ruler on like this because this is where we're going to cut. Line up the 2.5 inch mark, and there's a little mark here. This edge of the ruler goes on the edge of the fabric, the little square, and this little part goes at the top. And then we just cut. And we'll go and stitch 1/4 inch right here. Press the seams open. And when you do that, you'll have a chisel unit that sort of looks like that. We'll do that and show you in just a minute. If you're going to do stitch and flip, we'll take the same rectangle, or any of the rectangles, and on the back of your square, you're going to mark a diagonal line. And we'll place it like this on the rectangle because this is where we'll stitch along the diagonal, and then we'll cut off this area over here. When you stitch, it goes into the machine like this. You'll stitch just to the right of that drawn line. It's like giving yourself the scant 1/4 inch. Here is the folded corner clipper one, and I've stitched it. Now when we press our seams, you'll have the chisel unit that looks like this. This is the stitch and flip where I drew the line and stitched just to the right of the line. And I used my scissors to cut off about 1/4 inch away from the stitched line. And then when we press our seams open, we'll have the same chisel unit. For all of these rectangles, you'll use all of the background squares to make your chisel units. They all go in the same direction we just looked at. So we'll do those. If you look at the background C patch and the accent D patch, they go like this. So we'll put our background and our accent. And here we want the line to go this way, and we want to cut this part off. So we'll flip this for folded corner clipper. We turn it like this, and then position our ruler like we did before. And we'll just turn this diagram to make sure we're cutting the right one off. So there's how it looks. And then we'll just cut this. And that's ready to sew. For a stitch and flip, we take our background rectangle and our accent square, and the line is drawn on the back. We need to make sure we're going in the right direction, and that is right. So we put this down and we'll stitch a scant 1/4 inch just to the right of this drawn line. Then we'll cut this part off. And again, here's our folded corner clipper method. We press the seam like that, and then the chisel is going in the other direction. For the stitch and flip, we'll trim it off about 1/4 inch away from the stitching. And then when we press the seams, our chisel will go in the correct direction. Now you'll go through with all of your background rectangles and all of your accent squares and do the same thing. The half square triangles are done, and the 2 sets of chisel units are done. We should have 2 of everything, so we're going to separate these out, and because remember we cut for 2 blocks. Okay, we'll work with 1 block right now. And I've got the proppet board out, and we're just going to follow the diagram and lay the block out. This is one of the block units. We're going to make 4 of these, and each one will be a different color, one of the accent colors. At this point, you can just piece all of these together and then totally separate all of these pieces to different blocks, or you can just do 1 block at a time, however you like. And there's what the block looks like, and we'll just piece these together. And if you look, you can see that this is a 2x2 grid. 1, 2 this way, and 1, 2 this way. So this is a 12-inch block, so each of these grid units will finish at 6 inches. This is a 4-inch finished and this is a 2-inch finished. So 4 plus 2 is 6. Same way this way. You can piece these separate like this, or you can piece them in rows like this, and this is what I'm going to do. So you have 4 rows actually, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then press your seams and then stitch all of your rows together. Here's the block, and then we have our 4 individual units. And if I were making an entire quilt, I would just leave these separate and then mix them together with other blocks. Do 2 blocks at a time and then just piece 1 block and then use the others to mix it up and make it scrappy. So here's the block. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you're at it, click the bell to be notified of future videos.